following an edge. So now we're going to take the next step, which hopefully will allow you to continue the intense looking and the intensity that that brings to your drawing, and at the same time begin to allow the drawing to sort of start to show you a way that you can look at the object but make a drawing that ends up looking like the object as well. This is still not all restrictions off, and so I don't expect these drawings will seem like perfect renderings. I don't want you using erasers for this. I want you to keep the line going in one direction, following each edge. And here's the idea of the modified blind contour drawing. You can look at the paper when you're not actually drawing. But any time that you're actually drawing, you want to be looking at the subject of your drawing. You're going to be limited here to lines, which we call contours. A contour, when we're talking about drawing, is a line that describes an edge. And we're still limiting ourselves to contours, edges, lines that describe physical edges you could touch. So you're not going to draw shadows or light and dark, or you're not going to draw, for example, if you have a piece of clothing and it's got a name printed on it, you're not going to draw the name. You're just going to draw the edges of the wrinkles and the sides of the piece of clothing. So this was, I was looking at my hand. I'm going to use this large piece, and so I'm going to use a charcoal pencil this time so that I make a darker, more intense mark. I'm trying out for the first time one of the charcoal pencils from that kit that I bought and talked about in the materials video. It's Shuttle Art. And they just have soft, medium, and hard. I picked medium. And I guess I'll draw my hand again. You could draw anything that is somewhat organic and has a lot of edges. In the classroom, I typically have students drawing pine cones or drawing gnarly pieces of dried wood. You might have some things around the kitchen. If you have, this is probably not a good one to draw things that are don't have a whole lot of edges and contours, like an apple or a lemon, but a dragon fruit or kind of gnarly ginger root or things like that might be good. And you can always draw things like your hands or your feet. So I'm going to draw my hand again. Now, I think you can see it in the view here. Obviously, you're not going to get the same view I am because you are looking at this piece of paper and this scene with my hand from a different angle than I am. Notice I'm wearing a wristwatch. Now, that would be something that if I extend my drawing that far, if I encounter this, then these edges also would all be ones that I would want to draw. I would want to represent and follow. Again, we're looking for ones that are physical edges you could touch.